Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Danta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Desha Tarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome to our question and answer session for Friday night. And I hope you have some very good questions in mind or prepared. We always try to introduce our question and answer sessions with some of the questions and answers in Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, particularly the questions, because as you've heard me say so many times, in bhakti knowledge, the questions are as important as the answers. You've explained so many times how in material consciousness, people just want the answers. They don't understand that proper questions bring about proper answers when you're speaking to someone who has genuine knowledge. An example of that is the beginning of the sixth canto, where Pritchett Maharaj presents to Shukadeva Goswami how how Pritchett has heard the whole scope of the processes of elevation and degradation. He reminds Shukadeva Goswami, you've explained in the second canto about the process of rising through the different levels of the material universe, the different levels of material happiness, and ultimately making it to Brahmaloka, the planet of Lord Brahma, the topmost planet in the material universe. And then at the annihilation, the end of even Lord Brahma's life, the residents go back to Godhead with Lord Brahma. So Pritchett Maharaj says, you've explained that, the gradual process of becoming free of material existence. And you've also explained how living entities enter hellish situations. You've done that in the fifth canto. This is on Pritchett Maharaj's mind. How, because of ignorance and rebelliousness, living entities destroy themselves in the present and the future by their being forced to accept miserable bodies and miserable situations, all in exchange for, at best, some flashes of so-called happiness. So Pritchett Maharaj is giving you a survey of the hellish situations and heavenly situations available in this universe. And of course, his focus is on what is beyond. So he says to Shukadeva Goswami, Adu neha mahabhaga yataiva narakan nara nanogra yatanan neyat tanme vyakyatum arhasi. Oh, greatly fortunate and opulent Shukadeva Goswami. Now kindly tell me how human beings may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions in which they suffer terrible pains. To encourage Shukadeva Goswami is one reason why Pritchett Maharaj presented an encapsulation, a quick overview of some prominent themes Shukadeva Goswami discussed in earlier cantos. In other words, Pritchett wants to show Shukadeva, I've heard, you can invest in me. You can teach me. I'm assimilating the lessons. Here's what you've said before. Especially what's on Pritchett Maharaj's mind is how the living entities can be rescued from the hellish conditions they themselves have brought about by their own choices, by their own actions. Pritchett is showing you the thinking of a real devotee. A Vaishnava lives for the others. How can these persons who have not even understanding that after this life, there's another life, how can they be convinced? It's very difficult, as Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport. To convince them of their next life is very difficult because they have become almost mad in their pursuit of material enjoyment. Nevertheless, our duty, the duty of all sane men, is to save them. Maharaj Parikshit is the representative of one who can save them. So, what does this mean to be mad in the pursuit of material enjoyment? You would not, ordinarily speaking, consider most people mad. But when you think about it, this notion that just try to be happy in this moment and try to arrange for your happiness for a bit of the future that you're able to arrange. This is madness. It's like a little child just thinking about the next few days, or even often a little child can't think past tomorrow. Therefore, they're so impatient. They want what they want now. For an adult to be this way is madness. Such ignorance, passing as progress and the advancement of knowledge, when actually you're dealing with the darkness of ignorance. You learn to spot that. You learn to see that by keeping your intelligence purified by Srimad Bhagavatam. It keeps you focused, and we need that focus daily. So Pritchett Maharaj has the confidence. I'm speaking to Shukadev Goswami, who's greatly fortunate and opulent. But wait a minute, Shukadev Goswami has nothing. He doesn't even have clothes. So how could he be opulent? He's overloaded with spiritual wealth. And we can tap into that wealth through parampara. So now we'll ask you for your questions.
Gurudev,
Yes.
I've got a question. How do we keep Krishna in the center of our material relationships, for example, with family?
Okay. I don't see who asked that question.
That's Sanjananda.
Oh. Nice to hear from you, Sandrananda.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna. We have to understand what the purpose of our family is, and always keep that purpose in mind. How to keep Krishna's service in the center of the family. When you talk about keeping Krishna in the center, you're talking about service. Service involves hearing, chanting, remembering, all the 9 processes of devotional service, how that can be the heart and soul of the family. As Lord Rishabdev explains in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, no one should be a father, husband, mother, teacher. No one should take up any responsibility for anyone else unless you can help to rescue that dependent from the cycle of birth and death. This is a very stern instruction.
And what about your parents?
Parents, somehow that you try to engage them in Krishna's service. Even they may think we're just taking care of our daughter, we're just helping to arrange material facilities for our daughter. But no, Krishna doesn't see it that way. Krishna sees you are serving a devotee. So somehow or other, arrange that they do some little thing for Krishna's service. But then, of course, if they are going to get actual credit for serving Krishna, the children of those parents have to make sure that the devotee children of those parents, or devotee child of those parents, has to make sure that the parents are actually supporting a devotee. So therefore, for the sake of the parents, a devotee wants to make sure that he or she is dedicated to pleasing Krishna. And that by doing so, that gives the greatest benefit to the parents.
Okay. Thank you, Gurudev.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Yes.
Just a question on the principle of being broad-minded. So we see Rupa Goswami discusses Niyamagraha as too fastidiously following the rules or letting the rules go. So sometimes we may oscillate between being liberal or being conservative, but what is then the principle of broad-mindedness? We see Srila Prabhupada was very broad-minded. How do we understand that and apply that in our life?
He was simultaneously conservative and liberal. He presented clearly what is the standard for bhakti. At the same time, he spoke of encouraging everyone in their spiritual development, even those who are taking little steps. Just like when hearing about the Muslims when he was in Iran, how they, according to their scriptural injunction, it is said, they would slaughter the lambs facing a certain direction toward Mecca, I believe. And in that way, they were following their religious principles as much as they knew. So when devotees presented that to Prabhupada in a very negative way, but Prabhupada said, at least they're trying to follow some kind of Shastra. And that doesn't mean that we are excused by doing such things. But he was strict. Srila Prabhupada was strict and at the same time very expansive in his vision. You have to distinguish between those who are on track to being fully practicing devotees and those who are well-wishers, those who are peripheral acquaintances, peripheral supporters. That does take maturity and wisdom.
Thank you.
I see everyone is raising their hands, but I don't see all. I see Gaur Archie with a hand raised.
Hare Krishna, Guraj. This is actually a question from Nitai.
Nitai, little Nitai is asking a question. Very good.
You want to ask? He wants to know, do we have infinity lives?
Infinite in the sense that you can never count the number of material lifetimes as a conditioned soul. But everything material has a limitation, but you'll never get to the end of how many lifetimes it's possible to live as a conditioned soul. You'll never get to the beginning of your karma. But what you should do is focus, think about how to get out of material existence by becoming more attached to Krishna. So I hope your mother and father are helping you to become more attached to Krishna. If they're not doing that, you report them to me, okay? I'll take action. Thank you for that very nice question. It shows that by your asking such a question, it shows you're thinking. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, he was thinking how to rescue my friends from material illusion. Did you know that? Prahlad was speaking to his school friends, giving them such valuable knowledge that even we today, adults, benefit infinitely from Prahlad Maharaj's instructions. I see Veera Gopi's hand is up.
Hi, Krishna Gurudev. In the past, you've said that we can gain experience from reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So I was just wondering what is the determining factor, whether we can gain experience from reading alone or whether we have to go through something ourselves?
Give me an example of what you think you have to go through yourself.
Oh, I guess a general one would be like we're reading so often that material things are not going to satisfy us, but it seems like for myself, I'm reading it, but I feel like I'm still going to have to go through it practically to get realization.
Go through what?
Being not satisfied by material things.
Well, you
I don't know.
told me before you came to Bhakti you weren't satisfied. So what makes us think that suddenly there's going to be a change and material life will satisfy me? You already been through it, and smartly, intelligently, you opted out. But memories fade, right? Intelligence becomes dull. Unless we keep ourselves refreshed with bhakti, hearing and chanting about Krishna. It's true, memories fade. You can't rely on your memories of material boredom and suffering to sustain you year after year in bhakti. So we should be developing attraction for Krishna. And that will overpower our consequences of forgetfulness. We're forgetting how stale, how repetitive, how unsatisfying were our endeavors for material happiness. We forget very easily because that's the nature of being in the illusory energy, forgetfulness. So keep yourself in the fire of devotional service. That's the easy way, how to not be caught by the illusory energy. So the more you hear daily, the safer you are.
Thank you.
Prema Kalpataru. Your hand is up. Is there a question? We don't hear anything.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Yes.
Because nowadays it's Gopati, he just started crawling. So I have to take care of Gopati. So it's becoming hard to chant, sit down and chant for 2 hours on a beat. So is it okay to chant on clicker?
Yes, mothers got to do what they got to do. They're not going to find often, because they have a very quiet child. They're not going to find 2 hours of peace and quiet to chant all their rounds. So some or other, you've got to make it through the day, chanting here, chanting there, this time, that time, so that by nightfall, before you go to sleep, you've completed your 16 rounds. Often it's requires special effort, but that's all part of motherhood. You want to give your child the best possible mother. Ordinary mother, it can be had in any species of life. So now you have the child, it is your responsibility to saturate the home atmosphere with hearing and chanting about Krishna.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Oh, no more questions. I can retire for the night. I see. Yes, you have to sing out, because I don't, if your video isn't on, I don't see your hand. But maybe I'll make an arrangement where, let's see. Okay. I've changed that. So now even if your video is not on, but I like to see you, but in any case, I can see your hands. Who is just speaking? Was it Punya Shloka Krishna, or who was someone was
Yes,
speaking?
Maharaj, sorry, I was unmuted. Sorry, maybe my voice came. But I have a question, but I see there are others who have already raised their hands before me. So I'll wait for my turn, Maharaj.
Now you're online now. You're talking, so let it fly.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, I just wanted to check. I mean, I know it's a long journey. Sometimes may take many lifetimes before we get eligible to enter into Golaka, where Krishna resides. So, I mean, yes, if we obviously, I mean, if we think that we have a genuine desire, yes, we want to serve Krishna, we want to be with him and get out of this material existence. And while we are here, try to serve him, you know, do as much as we can in the mission of Srila Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu. But because of all the anarthas which we carry from many lifetimes, yes, the desire is there. Yes, we want to go out, but the material energy is so strong that these anarthas are deeply ingrained. So my question is that do we have to wait for many lifetimes until these anarthas are out, or maybe we get some concession from Krishna that he sees the genuine desire, but he also sees our helplessness at the same time. So
Yes, the special concession from Krishna is Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gauranga Mahaprabhu makes everything possible, even though it should be impossible. So the more you take shelter of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, the more you can understand Radha and Krishna. Otherwise, it is practically impossible in this age of Kali to understand Radha and Krishna without serving Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who orders, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. As I often point out, because Prabhupada pointed it out, this is the same as Krishna saying, surrender to me, sarva dharman parityajya. Wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. Become a servant of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And then you'll see that the impossible, what is ordinarily impossible, becomes possible. For one who remembers Lord Chaitanya, difficult things become easy. And for one who forgets him, easy things become difficult. That's a verse from the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So live that. Make experiencing that principle your objective. Just try to be the servant through parampara of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada told us that, well, first, a question. A devotee asked him, what if at the time of death, because the body is so in such a devastated state and the mind is disturbed, suppose a devotee doesn't remember Krishna at the time of death due to all that emotion, an intense commotion that we've forgotten. We've been through it in our previous lifetimes, but we've forgotten. So what about that? So Srila Prabhupada responded that generally someone who's a devotee, an actual devotee, will remember Krishna. That's the way it is for a real devotee. Of course, we'll say, but what about us? We're trying so hard to be real devotees. So Srila Prabhupada explained that even if you're so disturbed and deranged, your consciousness, that is, at the time of death, Krishna remembers all the service you've done and he forces himself into your mind. The relationship is reciprocal. Krishna remembers all the service you've done. And he reciprocates by forcing himself into your mind. All right. Mathura Gokul, Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Please accept my respectful obeisances. Gurudev, I have a question from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10. I was reading chapter 78, text number 16, where it has been mentioned that after killing Dantavakra, Krishna went to Mathura. After that, he went to Vraja. And he stayed there for 2 months. He enjoyed there with the Vrajavasis for 2 months. And after that, he withdrew his Vraja pastime from mundane eyes by taking the demigod's portion of his parents and other relatives and friends to Vaikuntha. But as we have heard many times that Nanda and Yashoda, they are the eternal associates of Lord. Then why it has been mentioned as the demigod portion he withdrew? What exactly
They have
that means?
expansions. Just like Krishna can expand himself, so his eternal associates can also expand themselves. You'll find more about that when you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Devotees can expand themselves. They have portions. They're still not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are parts. But Krishna's entourage has such abilities.
Thank you, Gurudev.
I see Stamba Bhava's hand is up.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. This is Gada Garangadas. I heard it discussed in a recent talk that you gave to some Russian devotees about senior, in terms of age or in terms of time and bhakti, senior devotees, how they can empower and not be envious of younger devotees in terms of age or time and bhakti. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on that point.
I don't know that I said envious of younger devotees, but just not allowing them to show all that they could show in devotional service, because after all, they are younger devotees. It's coming to me what you're referring to. It's coming to me more now. I pointed out that many of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers could not really accept him as the world acharya because they remembered his being a younger devotee and a householder and a businessman. They couldn't quite compute. How is it that Abhay Babu, that householder with pharmaceutical business, now he's the world acharya and his followers are calling him Prabhupada? So I cited that as an example of how we can become so preoccupied with material calculations of devotional stature. I took initiation before he did, or I took sannyas before he did. In the Gaudiya Maths, you are ranked according to when you took sannyas, not according to when you were initiated. So it can be such that even when you're seated in an assembly for prasad, you sit according to your date of taking sannyas. Of course, seniority is something to be respected, but it shouldn't be turned into an impediment for others. We don't know in the coming decades who will be prominent. If you look at most of the present leaders, senior leaders of ISKCON, none of them thought that they'd be doing what they're doing now. So I also explained one letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote, which I used to keep pasted to my locker in the Brahmacharya ashram in the New York Temple in 74, 75, where Prabhupada was writing one leader who had disappointed him. And he said, I've given you such a big opportunity, but I know Lord Chaitanya will send me the right persons to lead this movement. If not you, somebody else. So we should not be so sure that someone who's not a young devotee now, or someone who we don't recognize so much their potency now, we don't know what they could do in the future. So yes, there's a principle of seniority, but that principle should not be wielded as some kind of barrier. That was my point. We should be open to recognizing how Krishna is using everyone, whether young or old. Should we be envious of little Nitai for asking a question like he did? Who does he think he is, asking such big questions? Everyone I noticed was smiling in appreciation that he was asking such a question. No one was trying to shut him down. Oh, you little kid, just be quiet. So this is the way we should be for all devotees.
Thank you.
Now, sometimes your Zoom name doesn't really let me know who you are, and I can't really say the name because I don't know who it is. It's a partial name or I see Stumba Baba's hand is up again. That must refer to someone else who's in that assembly. Is that so?
No, sorry, I'll take it down.
Thank you. Yes, if you've already asked your question, please take the hand down. That would help. I see a hand raised for Bhakti Lounge, the heart of yoga. This question must be about Krishna because Krishna is the heart of yoga.
Hare Krishna, it's Paradharma here.
Yes.
Dancing in a kirtan, is it a skill that we can learn and practice, or it doesn't matter how we move?
You look at the Panchatattva and dance like them. Both hands in the air. Do you have to practice that in front of the mirror at home?
So it's not like cooking or playing musical instruments.
Dance like the Panchatattva, and then if you're feeling ecstasy, other things may happen, but that should be natural, not forced.
Okay, thank you.
Manobi Ram, I see your name there, I believe.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. Yeah, my question, well, first I'll give a little preamble, sorry. So it's commonly stated that at a certain point in our devotional life, we may come to realize that we don't actually know what love is. The philosophy discourages us from pursuing the physiological and psychological stuff in of itself, but it was that stuff which we misconceive as being ingredients for love through all of our conditioned lives. So my question then is, what is real love, and what would you propose as being a prime example from the Shastra that we should strive for?
Real love is to act towards someone so that their bhakti increases. Whether it's a mother and father and their child, or one spouse to another spouse, or you're trying to help everyone in your neighborhood, everyone in your society, everyone in the world. The real love, the pure love, is to act in such a way that that person or persons increase in their bhakti. There are varying shades of that, it's not all or nothing or either or. There's like a continuum, and you could be either here on the continuum or you could be moving toward pure bhakti. Your love could be mixed, but be progressive. Know what your goal is and work on that goal. It's not all or nothing. It's gradual progress, no matter what ashram you're in. Is that clear?
Yes, Gurudev.
Madhupan Lila.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Hare Krishna. I was wondering why Lakshmana, who's Duryodhana's daughter, isn't attracted to Samba when he goes to kidnap her from her Swayamvara ceremony, because
I can't hear you clearly.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me better now?
Maybe.
I was wondering why Lakshmana, who's Duryodhana's daughter, isn't attracted to Samba when he comes to kidnap her from her Swayamvara ceremony, because he's got all the qualities.
You have to ask her. All right, I see the name Shravya. That's all I can see. Looks like a Zoom name. All right, no one is responding. Kumar Sananda. Okay, go ahead.
Hare
Remember
Krishna
Shravya.
Maharaj. My respectful obeisances. I would like to request your blessings. I have a little baby girl in my family, recently joined by grace of Krishna. So if you permit me, I'll just go quickly bring her, and I would like your blessings on her today. I'm so sorry, Maharaj. I know this is for a question and answers, but I thought I would just take this opportunity. I don't know how I will be able to meet you by in any near future. So
Well, yes, we're happy that there's an increase in the number of devotees.
definitely, Maharaj.
We offer you blessings for raising the child and yourself in bhakti. Don't forget yourself.
Definitely, Maharaj. Definitely.
Child, as we said earlier, needs a Krishna conscious mother. So take that responsibility very seriously. Enough so that you make sure you're Krishna conscious.
Definitely. And I have a second question, Maharaj.
One is
Only one. Okay.
You have to give others a chance.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare.
Kumar Sanandan.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is a little bit maybe basic in my view, but I'll probably ask. I was just going through some of the lectures and also reading the Bhagavatam. The things that I was trying to write down was things like principles, goals, values, and everything that as a devotee or as a spiritual aspiring person, what are my principles, what are my values, what are my goals? So while writing through that, for principles, I can understand like what principles we follow, as example, like 4 regulative principles that we follow. And the goal wise, like I was thinking through and saying, like as a devotee, our goal is to get the Krishna Prem, please Srila Prabhupada, please yourself. So I can contemplate on that. But when it comes to values, I'm not getting a clear picture of what a value necessarily means from a devotee standpoint. Like, is it looking everyone in an equal perception or having a humility? Is that a value, or is there something else I should be contemplating to understand the value aspect in devotional life, Maharaj?
Depends on how you define values.
Okay.
You first have to let us know that, and then maybe we can answer.
Okay.
Otherwise, most persons will think value is what you value.
Yeah. Thanks, Maharaj. Because that it was a little bit like to your point, like I need to be very precise in terms of what I value. Then I can connect to the devotional side of it. Makes sense, but how do I define that value in the devotional sense itself is where I'm trying to contemplate on that part.
Value is what you value. If you value Krishna, if you value Krishna's devotee, then that becomes the core of your life. That is the be all and end all. What you value, you're always thinking about. Oh, when will I be able to do this? When can I accomplish this? How can I do this better? If you mean by value or values various items of integrity, again, we're simply thinking, or we should simply be thinking of how Krishna can be satisfied. Then all the other values become clear.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Recording is paused. Sayak Basu, you have a question?
Yes, Maharaj, I have a question. Maharaj, my question is, when there is an intense suffering which is happening because of karmic reaction, what is the best way to
You're
remember
not coming
Krishna?
through very clear. You're not coming through very clear, so we're going to have to give you a miss. Sorry.
Okay.
Please mute yourself. Thank you. Dinanath, do you have a question?
Maybe
Well, you think about it and we'll get back to you. All right. It looks like the Bhakti Lounge is at it again. Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. This is Kadiravan here. Just wondering how devotees can navigate the ocean of theories and provocative ideas and opinions that are there on the internet, which have always been there, but particularly seem very rabid at the moment. What is a good way devotees can navigate all of that?
Kalea dosha nidde rajan asti heko mahan gunaha. Material existence is an ocean of faults. You'll never get to the end of it. You can spend your whole life trying to get to the bottom of the conspiracies, the intricacies, the cheating. And there's some good because this is the middle planetary system. That means there's good mixed with bad. There's happiness mixed with distress. So it's so complicated. Sometimes persons are part good and part bad. Sometimes the good comes to the fore, sometimes the bad. Just like I gave the example about Srinivasacharya, Narottam Das Thakur, Shamananda. The books, the sacred texts, the most valuable gems that Jiva Goswami asked them to transport from Vrindavan to Bengal. All the books that we revere today were in an ox cart. And they were, to make a long story short, they were stolen by a king who was actually a leader of gangsters, dacoits, they would say in India, we would say gangsters. Or in New Zealand, they try to soften a bit by saying gang members. That changes everything, you know. So the king was a leader of such persons, and he arranged that these robbers steal the ox cart because he had heard that in the ox cart were most valuable gems. They were most valuable gems. They were the Shastras. Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipano, as Srinivasacharya wrote in his song, The Six Goswamis of Vrindavan. So the three, Shamananda, Narottam, and Srinivas, when they woke up in the morning and saw that the books were gone, they practically wanted to give up their life. As things proceeded, Srinivas heard that the king liked to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Can you imagine? That's what I mean, mixed. It was a conspiracy. An astrologer was in on it too. An astrologer confirmed, yeah, in that ox cart, most valuable things. So the king was so confident. He had a whole web of robbers and an astrologer. You know, he had put together a real mob, a real cartel. But he liked hearing Bhagavatam, and various brahmanas would come to his court, his assembly, and recite Bhagavatam. And so Srinivas got to know one of those brahmanas who suggested, come along with me and I'll introduce you to the king. So you can recite Bhagavatam and the king could become favorably inclined to you. And indeed, it happened. This king, who was the leader of the robbers, prime conspirator, he became attached to hearing from Srinivasacharya, so much so that he actually gave the books back. Srinivasacharya was able to tell him, look, you know, I've had this great loss. Maybe you know something about it. And the king kind of said, yeah, I could know something about that. So the king gave the books back and eventually took initiation from Srinivasacharya. So good, bad. This material world's a complicated place. And it's very foolish for devotees to think that they can sort it all out. Better you invest your time in improving the quality of your spiritual life. You can be aware of current events as much as your abilities allow, but never think you've gotten to the bottom of it all. When someone sends me something, Guru Maharaj, you have to look at this video clip, or you have to read this, or look. I often tell them that I might consider doing that if you send me a video clip or article that says completely the opposite. Then I can consider both. But don't, with evangelical fervor and gospel zeal, just send me one side. So the main thing is humility. Part of pride is to think that, I know I got this all sussed out. You'll never get to the bottom of it. It's too complicated and your life is too short. So you stumble upon one thing on the internet. Aha, just see. And you call up your friends or you immediately send the link. If there's true humility, you realize how powerless you are. And you're not free. In some countries of this world, people think actually they're free when they're so bound up and controlled, whether by this side of the media or the other side of the media. I was just speaking with Krishnagraja today. And we were talking about how persons think they're free, and then when there's some restriction, they get all upset. But actually, wait a minute. What made you ever think you were living in a free society and you were free? So he reminded me of something I had forgotten, something that happened so prominently during my late teens and early 20s, the Vietnam War in the USA and also Australia. Certainly in the USA, the land of the free and home of the brave. That's what they taught us in school. So when you turned 18, you had to register with the Army for being conscripted, for being drafted into military service. No ifs, ands, or buts. You had to register. And the only way you could get out of being sent to Vietnam to fight in the jungles was if you had some kind of medical reason, or you could get a university deferment. You finished university, you were safe from the military. But as soon as you graduated, so this disturbed persons of my generation more than you can ever imagine. Here you are, and here you are 18, 19, and you could be just shipped overseas to fight in the jungles of Vietnam in a war that now everyone admits they can't figure out what was going on or why there had to be such a war. This is Maya. So there are always things being rammed down our throats. There's always things being forced upon us to one degree or another. I've seen the restrictions. I've experienced them. I've experienced life in the former Soviet Empire. But one thing I'll tell you is that many of those devotees in that part of the world were more Krishna conscious during the time of repression. They were calling out to Krishna more, and they were so grateful for the opportunity to chant Hare Krishna, even though they lived amidst such a repressive regime. So after all is said and done, we're going to give up these bodies. And what will the next destination be? Here in New Zealand, if I can be place specific, geographically specific, there's a certain complacency and a feeling that we've got it good here and we can more or less do what we like as long as we're not harming anyone. No, you live in the material world, you have a material body, and things happen, stuff happens. You're not in control. Even those materially who think they're in control are not in control. Everyone is terrorized by the three modes of material nature. And these days it's two modes, passion and ignorance. So to the degree that we think we're free, we get angry. How can I be told to do this? How can I be told to do that? Hey, this is the material world. You're living in a material society. Is your focus going to be on battling such restrictions, or is your focus going to be on becoming Krishna conscious? These are questions each individual devotee has to ask himself or herself. When you read 12th Canto Bhagavatam, you see that the problems have only just begun. But we think, oh, this material world is not such a bad place. It's a nice place. I want it to be nice. We just heard about Shukadeva Goswami explaining to Pritchett Maharaj the process of gradual elevation back to Godhead by going through the higher planets all the way to Brahmaloka and then going to Vaikuntha at the end of Brahma's life. And Pritchett Maharaj says, well, you've described that process of elevation, and you've also described the process of degradation, the hellish conditions you talk about at the end of the 5th canto. What to do about living entities? How do they become free of all this? And that's real intelligence. Governments will do this, governments will do that. I remember in the former Soviet bloc, in one country, a devotee had to go into the army. There was no way he could escape it. Otherwise, you're thrown into prison and severe conditions. So he went into the army and they treated him so horribly. They injected him with drugs that made so that every time he tried to sit down, he would stand up. I know in another country, the first time I went to Bulgaria, I didn't know it, but someone who came to one of my programs later became a leader. He's doing underground outreach in Bulgaria. And the secret police kept telling him, you better stop this. So the Bulgarian KGB was not as subtle, you could say, as the Russian KGB could be. So one day, this devotee who was responsible for bringing significant number of persons for those times to bhakti, he would usually chant japa on the road, walking on the road at 6 a.m. in the morning, no traffic. And as he was doing that one morning, out of the blue, so to speak, out of nowhere comes a speeding car, which veers off the road onto the pavement and crushes him and then takes off. Everyone knew this is a trademark KGB killing. So in some parts of the world, there's more acceptance of the grim realities of material existence. And in other parts of the world, there's a bit of la la land. I won't say what parts of the world those are. How could this happen? All right. I see it says Jonathan's iPhone. I have no idea who that is, but the hand is up. Oh, it's
Hare Krishna.
Jayadev Ravi.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I'm just wondering what does it take to increase our service in terms of capacity and also quality?
Everything rests on your japa. And try to do something for helping others to bhakti. Do something. Don't think, oh, I can only do a little, so what's the point? The quest for attentive japa should dominate our life. And make an effort to do something, some way to assist someone in coming to Lord Chaitanya's mercy. I've often explained so many times there are persons who've become devotees because they met someone someone distributing books, a devotee distributing books, and that devotee was only out for 1 hour of the whole week, and thinking, oh, I'm having such a tough time. No one's stopping. No one is taking any books. And then one person comes along and takes the book, and the Sankirtan devotee out for 1 hour, because that's not his full-time service or her full-time service, goes back home thinking, oh, what a tough day. One book, that's it. That's all I did. What's the use? And then a few months later, the person who got that one book shows up at an outreach center and becomes a fully practicing devotee. I know for myself, the second person that I got a book from, he was clearly having a tough time. And I kind of surprised him. I walked up to him and said, hey, what do you got there? And so he was a bit astonished, like, oh my goodness, I'm having such a tough day and I'm not so blissful. And someone comes up to me and asks me, what do I have? So there are many cases like that, where a householder, a brahmachari, a new person, some other ventured out on an outreach and thought, what's the use of my efforts? I'm so insignificant. Let me go back. Let me go back home, back to the ashram, whatever. And they meet one person all day long who takes a book. I've been through that experience as a young Sankirtan devotee in New York. I distributed very few books. Although everyone else said I was trying so hard. But so many persons I met became devotees. But as a young, immature devotee, I didn't see that. I thought my scores are bad. What's the use? I want to change my service. Although I struggled on. But looking back now, I see so many persons I met became devotees. Krishna was using me somehow or other. So attentive japa and do something, even though it may seem small. Persons have families, newborn babies, they're working. Make a little endeavor, something. Rasikananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm planning to go out on a book distribution tomorrow, but I haven't done it in quite a while. Do you have any advice, or what could I make as my meditation?
Truthfully, what I'm meditating on, I can't get out of my mind, is when I heard about how your Guru Maharaj was selling futuristic sets of French Bhagavatam, and the books weren't even printed. I believe he said 200. So that just blows my mind. So there you have the footsteps to follow. And I will certainly give a report to him. Just as for me, what I can say is just go out and do the best you can and don't be in anxiety about it. Krishna wants to see your effort. Let's see if I can. Oh. I don't know if I could find it straight away. I'll look very quickly. It's a very beautiful statement by Srila Prabhupada about results. Let's see. No, I don't seem to find it. It's so wonderful. In which he says, basically, but I can't repeat it as beautifully as he said it. Krishna's not watching your results, he's watching your efforts. He says, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. He doesn't say that they have to be Krishna conscious after you meet them, after you teach them. He's asking, you make the effort. And by your effort, you attract his attention. This is hard for our fruitive mentality. We're so result orientated in the material way. But Prabhupada is pointing out how to be result orientated in the spiritual way. It's all about your effort. Krishna says you try. That's what he asks you to do. What happens after that? Something else. Of course, you want that the people become Krishna conscious. Certainly you want that. But it's not Krishna's requirement for you. Krishna's requirement for you is that you try. You extend yourself. I see Mathura Gokul's hand up. Did you ask a question before, or maybe this is coming from your husband, Nanda Gokul?
Sorry.
No response. Yes. All right. She left her hand up from before. Well, if there are no more questions. Okay, Dinana. I see you. You didn't have your hand up on the app, but I saw you raise your hand. Somehow or other, I saw that. Yes.
How do we use all of the things that we have in Krishna's service?
How can what?
How can we use all of the things that we have in Krishna's service?
How can we use all the things we have in Krishna's service? Well, do you have a lot of things? You have a lot of toys, or what do you have?
Oh, I have heaps of things.
Ah.
I've got Play-Doh. I've got carpet. I've got bike, jumping, garden. Yeah.
Well, you can inspire your mother and father to engage more in Krishna's service. What do you think? You can say, Pita, I want to chant Hare Krishna with you.
We have kirtan every night.
Kirtan every night. Oh, I should come and visit.
I play harmonium. Daddy
You
plays
play harmonium. Oh. Who leads kirtan? Who sings?
me.
You. Oh.
I lead kirtan, play harmonium. Daddy plays mridanga, and I play mridanga when the Shingadee plays, and then Mommy plays katos.
Oh, what a wonderful family. So you should inspire them to do this. You know what inspire means? You should make them enthusiastic and happy to do this.
Yeah.
the more you can inspire your mother and father to glorify Krishna, then you are using everything in Krishna's service.
Like sometimes they miss out some of the prayers, like there's so many prayers we do. We do Nrsimhadev prayers, we do Hare Krishna, we do Tulsi prayers, and we do no other prayers, but I wish we could do more.
Very beautiful home. So even though you're young, you can think, how can there be many homes like this, like the one you have? How to give Krishna to others. Start thinking about that now.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Okay,
Thank you.
I see Gaur Arti's hand is up again. Nitai is inspired by Dinanath to say something. Dinanath, do you know Nitai?
He's my friend.
He's your friend. Oh, okay. A friend of yours is a friend of mine. Yes, Nitai, you wanted to say something.
You ask. Okay, he's feeling shy to ask. I'll ask him. He wants to ask, what is Krishna's?
Our most powerful incarnation.
Say again.
What's
Huh?
Krishna's most powerful incarnation?
All the incarnations of Krishna have the same power, but they don't reveal it.
Mm.
Only Krishna reveals everything. Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead, but he has expansions that are equally as powerful, but they don't show it. You're thinking about these things, huh? Very good. Very good. You're looking at the pictures in Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yes.
You talk a little louder.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So we thank you all for your association. Thank you for your questions. I see so many of you. Looking forward to seeing you in person. Hare Krishna.